Hi everyone, it's Ashley, aka the Flaming Geek. So, as promised, here is my review of the second Star Wars saga film, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. So to start it off, this movie came out this movie was released in 2002. And just a little background information about how this film was kind of its relationship with me is I remember seeing it in theaters on its opening day with my family. My parents took myself and my brother. We went and saw it because my family, I was brought up with a lot of geek culture. So I went to see this film and oh my gosh, I was 8 years old when we saw this and I hated it. I thought it was the most stupid film ever. And that's saying a lot considering I hate Jar Jar. I hated this film. And that's saying a lot considering I hated Jar Jar Binks from episode 1. But for the longest time, I would rather watch The Phantom Menace over Attack of the Clones. So I saw this movie when I was 8. So 2002. Didn't watch it for 11 years. That was the second time I saw it in 2013, and I remember it was because a bunch of my Quidditch teammates, yes, I play Quidditch, at my university had never seen Star Wars, the films, and so we had a drinking marathon where we watched all the Star Wars films, and we took a shot whenever a lightsaber came out and chugged our drink whenever we chugged our drink whenever a lightsaber battle started, and we had to keep drinking until it finished. So you can imagine, oh my gosh, very bad. Have a drink whenever they say the Force, whenever they say Anakin or Padme, stuff like that. So 11 years later, watched the film. I still hated it. Then I didn't watch it until last Sunday, when I was watching it to do my review for this, to write down my notes. And oh my gosh, that movie is funny to watch. So I'll start off from the beginning. So basically the main idea of the film is it begins with Senator Padme Amidala needs to go ahead, and she's one of the deciding votes on whether the Senate should pass through a galactic army, essentially, for the Republic to go up against the Separatists, since it's becoming it's going to amount to war, and she's very against it. So of course there's assassination attempts. I'll just start off with the good things and the bad things, and we'll kind of just go through the movie like that. So first of all, Padme takes off her helmet in front of Corday, and right when Cordays are double, and I remember thinking seriously, you're going to take your helmet off? I understand the audience needs to know that that's Padme. Padme is actually not dead. That's Corday. But why would you take your helmet off if you know there was someone, your double just finished getting assassinated? Why would you take your helmet off? The assassin could be anywhere around there. That's all they need for confirmation. So I thought that was really stupid for dramatic effect. When Anakin and Obi-Wan, they come back from one of their long-term missions, and they're talking about Count Dooku. And they're like, Dooku, he might be behind this, he might be orchestrating it, but it's all speculation at this point. And Padme brings it up too. She said, it's probably Count Dooku. And Mace Windu just goes, it's not his character. Really? So just because Dooku was a former Jedi, it's not his character to go and try to kill someone? The point being, he's a former Jedi, so obviously he left the Jedi Order because of grievances, so anything can change. And he'd been out of the Jedi Order for several years, and things can happen to people. They can change. So I found that was kind of ridiculous too. And one of the first things I noticed too, oh my gosh, when they're in that hallway just interacting with each other, way too much CGI, to the point where this movie kind of looks dated. The sets are CGI. I believe they only made around 4, 5, 6 sets for this movie. The rest is blue screen, green screen. And it's very noticeable. It's very noticeable. Anyhow, so because of the assassination attempt on Padme, the Jedi Order decides to give Anakin and Obi-Wan. Anakin and Obi-Wan are given this job to protect Padme from a potential assassination attempt. So right away, when they're sitting in that room there with, like, there's Obi-Wan, Anakin, Jar Jar, and Padme, and someone else. Sorry, I'm just trying to do this brief review. So Anakin is major creeper in this movie, like, major creeper. He's just like, and because Padme says to him, Annie, you've grown so much. And he says, so have you, grown more beautiful. So creepy. Like, I swear you could make, like, there's probably a video montage somewhere out there on YouTube where it's just Anakin's, like, major creeper face throughout the entire movie. When he's just staring at her, he's like, Like, he's staring at her like he wants to eat her or something. Like, it's so creepy. And it's just weird, too, because, like, I don't have a problem with age gaps in people, but this one, it doesn't work. Like, the two actors didn't have, like, the greatest chemistry on set working on this, so it looks very, like, forced. And it's very obvious that Padme just sees Anakin as, like, a friend that she knew when he was younger, and that's pretty much it. So there's this assassination attempt again on Padme while she's sleeping in her bedroom. And I think it's so stupid because you've got Jango Fett, like, one of the greatest bounty hunters, if anything, the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy, using another assassin, Zen, to assassinate Padme. And their solution? Use worms? That doesn't make any sense. And meanwhile, while that's going on, Anakin's being creepy again, being like, oh, I'd much rather dream about Padme. So creepy. There's this huge chase and everything. It kind of looks like a video game that's going on because there's, like, all the lights going on, and you can tell that they were all kind of just sitting in the studio being like, woo, woo, and just filming it. And everything else is digitally added in the background. I don't know. I personally found the chase kind of boring, actually. I won't lie. I brought out my phone and started looking at my phone. I was still listening to dialogue. And what's so stupid is once they get a hold of Zen, Jango Fett just kills her with a poison dart from a considerably far distance. Why couldn't he have done something like that to kill Padme? That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I get, like, okay. So moving on. The next thing is, because it's getting, of course, very severe, the Jedi Council decides to get a Padawan to protect a senator. Why would you do that? Why? Someone who's in training. I don't understand that. Like, are there not enough Jedis in the galaxy right now? Because, like, it's just, I found that really stupid. Like, get a boy to watch someone who's, like, high security and who's had, like, 2 assassination attempts on her. Anakin and Padme then go to Naboo, and they go on, like, this romantic getaway, and Anakin gets to meet her family, and they, like, hang out in the waterfalls and stuff. And that whole section, that whole time where they're on Naboo, I just remember thinking, like, this is so boring. Like, I want to see something else. It's the crappiest love story. I don't feel for these characters because they don't have good chemistry. It's just a creep up against this girl. And you know what? While they're, like, on their getaway on Naboo, Padme is changing outfits, like, almost every scene. And, like, that was a thing that kind of was happening in Phantom Menace, and I understand, like, fashion, it's alien fashion, okay, maybe that's her thing. But, like, her outfits go from being kind of modest to being very, 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 very revealing to, like, the dominatrix outfit that she has when they're, like, talking about how Anakin's like, I'm haunted by the kiss that you never should have given me. So meanwhile, Obi-Wan's investigating this dart that he got off of Zam after she'd been killed, and it soon leads him to a far planet that is on the outer rim called Kamino. I think this is the most interesting arc out of the entire movie, personally. What was going on with Obi-Wan? I could give 2 like, I could give two fucks about what's going on with Anakin and Padme, because it's so dull. It's just filling up space for me. The true interest of the story, because there's this mystery, like, why, who does not want a Republic army created? And so Obi-Wan goes to Kamino, and this part is very interesting, because then he discovers an army of clones that had been commissioned by Master Sifo Dyas through the use of bounty hunter Jango Fett's DNA to create these clones. The Kaminos explained that these clones, of course, they're like hindered in like self-intent, like they're just meant to be obedient. That's their job. So, of course, all the clones are like CGI when they're all in like full clone army uniform, and it just looks so bad. Oh my gosh, it doesn't feel, I don't know, for me personally, it doesn't feel like an army. It feels like very cartoony. It makes me think of the Clone Wars cartoon, which to me looks a lot better on screen. Anyhow, and I was thinking also, like, because Jango Fett decides to keep one unaltered clone of himself, who of course who's Boba Fett. And I find that so strange, because I'm just like, that'd be weird having like this mini version of you. Super creepy, but whatever you need to do, Jango Fett, do it. So, and meanwhile, Obi-Wan goes and he decides to inform Master Yoda and Master Mace Windu of the clone army. Yoda says this quote that I just absolutely love, which sums up the movie for me, like the Jedi and the movie for me, very well. Blind we are, if creation of this clone army we did not see. Yeah, obviously you are. Like, this film is frustrating to me because just the Jedis are meant to be these amazing warriors, and this movie does not show that. Obi-Wan puts two and two together, and he discovers that, of course, Jango Fett is indeed the bounty hunter who is trying to assassinate Senator Amidala. And there's a huge fight, and that's pretty neat. That action sequence is pretty cool. But it's funny watching how many times, like, Obi-Wan gets blown up and just goes flying back. But my favorite part of that fight is where Obi-Wan does this kick where he jumps up in the air and he just like goes flying and he kicks Jango, and it made me think of like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. Like, so funny. Meanwhile, like, Anakin and Padme are on their planet there, and they're in Naboo, and Anakin says his creepy code.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
So creepy. Finally, like, we're halfway into this movie, and finally, C-3PO, human cyborg relations, who's my favorite. One of my favorite. The droids are my favorite. I prefer the droids in the original Star Wars trilogy, because I think they had a funnier banter going on, whereas, especially in Attack of the Clones, C-3PO is purely comic relief, which, Anakin has this dream that his mother Shmi is screaming and crying, that she's dying and she's in pain and stuff. And so, of course, he has this feeling, this need to go back to Tatooine to find out about her. And so, he and Padme go to Tatooine, and they meet Watto. And Watto, of course, is like selling junk. He's lost everything. He really did lose everything at Phantom Menace. And you find out that, great for Shmi, she got freed, and she married Owen Lars, which is good for her, a moisture farmer. And of course, Shmi has gone missing. She was taken away while collecting mushrooms by The Tusken Raiders, the Sand People. So Anakin then goes, this next upcoming scene I think is probably one of the better ones in the film. So Anakin goes on his speeder to go find Shmi. And for me, I found that really funny because this whole sequence, it looks like a video game almost. Because I don't know if you ever played like the arcade Star Wars game with like the original trilogy where you're on Endor and you're like on the speeders and you're going to side like that. The shots made me think of that game and I was like, this looks so bad. This next scene, Anakin goes and he finds his mother. To me, this was like the best acting by Hayden Christensen in this movie, and that's saying a lot because his acting wasn't very good. Because you do feel the pain, the sorrow, and the loss. He's finally reunited with his mother, and then she dies. And that's sort of what triggers him to kind of have this spiral into the dark side. And this lust to have powers to protect those who he loves. Which is really tragic. So that scene there, for me, the anger that is portrayed on Anakin's face was very well done. You really feel for him. And he kills everyone. Of course, when he goes back and he tells Padme, he's just like, it's back to Hayden Christensen trying to act. And he's like, I killed everyone. Not just the men, but the women and the children. And it's so over top. And Padme's reaction to this, I remember my mom was watching this movie with me and she was like, what? And that says a lot because my mom's usually like, even for like crappy acting and stuff, she's like, oh, okay, that's good. He reveals this information to Padme, and Padme's response is, to be angry is human? What the fuck? He just admitted slaughtering, like, a mini tribe. Like, he admitted to slaughtering everyone for the death of one person. That goes entirely against the Jedi Order. And even regardless if he's in the Jedi Order, that is murder nonetheless, and that is creepy. And she goes and comforts him, and like she has no reaction whatsoever. Like she brushes it off, like, oh, okay, like he just lost like a pair of gloves and he's upset over it. She's like, oh, it's okay. To be angry is human. There are less council circle meetings, but still, I just want to say, for the record, I do not dig CGI Yoda. I prefer puppet Yoda, which they at least put some of that effort into The Phantom Menace. This movie, CGI young Yoda, it just looks really weird. It looks really weird. And you know what? For this movie, I don't really care for Yoda because him and Mace Windu are basically sitting on their asses the entire film. While, like, they send Obi-Wan and, like, a few other, like, Jedi off to do things. And they're kind of just sitting there being like, the Force. Oh, gosh. So, of course, I didn't want to bring up his name, but in their absence, Jar Jar Binks grants emergency power. Emergency power to the Chancellor. So basically, now the Chancellor can appoint an army. So you know what? Fuck you, Jar Jar. This is all your fault. Because of you, the Emperor got more power. And even on my notes here, it says, all Jar Jar's fault. So, of course, the story then leads us to the planet of Geonosis. Obi-Wan was last seen on Geonosis, and that's where he went missing. Anakin and Padme go to try to find him. And of course, the whole factory scene is basically like a video game. It's a stupid scene. Like, you know when you have stupid missions in a video game where it's like, go rescue the princess, and she's like, oh, help me, and you have to like get through all these obstacles and like you keep dying, but it's the most stupid thing ever, but you still do it anyhow. That's what that scene was for me. It's the most pointless scene ever in the movie. Like, it doesn't need to be there. And apparently was filmed last minute by George Lucas, and it was put in there. Thanks, Lucas. And so the scene on Geonosis, I just want to admit, I was never a fan of Geonosis, even in the Clone Wars cartoon. Geonosis, I hated it so much because the amount of clones that died on it. I love the clones, especially if you watch the Clone Wars cartoon, you sort of build like this relationship and you have sentiment for these clones because they really are not just clones, they're brothers and they each have unique personalities. And so, sentiment for Geonosis. But there's like this huge like gladiator setup. lovely CGI gladiator, and of course you've got the 3 main characters there, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme. I forgot to mention also, you have the reveal of Count Dooku, which is the most boring reveal ever. He's like in a Senate, he's like in another meeting, and then he appears to Obi-Wan while Obi-Wan's being detained, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, this shouldn't have happened, but if you join me, I can get your release. Obi-Wan's like, I'm not gonna join you, you know, you're a former Jedi, but you're really not, like, a good person and stuff. And that's kind of it. Like, you've got a great actor, and this whole film, like, they kept mentioning Count Dooku, Count Dooku, Count Dooku. I was gonna say Count Goku. Okay, Count Dooku. So I remember seeing the film, and when I saw it in theaters, I thought it was going to be like this amazing, like, introduction of a character that's going to stay in the film for a long time. Not the case. See Count Dooku, amazing actor. Sir Christopher Lee, amazing actor. But it felt like he was wasted in the Star Wars film. He really was wasted in my point of view. So they're in Geonosis, they're in the gladiator ring, and Dooku and Poggle the Lesser and everyone else are kind of just watching them. They're like, okay, you're gonna die. They bring out these aliens, and of course, Padme got swiped at conveniently so that her midsection is revealed, because that is sexy. That's sexy, and it needs to be in the film. Because they couldn't afford a time for, like, more outfit change, which I thought was so unnecessary. I was like, really? And plus she's in a completely white outfit that doesn't really get that dirty throughout the whole sequence. And she even manages to kick over, like, this giant monster, monster. Like, it weighed absolutely nothing. I was like, yeah, okay. I know I'm being really nitpicky, but I'm usually nitpicky when I watch films. All of a sudden, it's Deus Ex Machina, all right when our heroes are, like, about to die and you really think this is the end. All of these Jedi show up. My first reaction was, where the fuck were you for the rest of the movie? What were you doing? Like, I'm sure a bunch of them were off on, like, missions, doing other stuff. But, like, why do they have to send one Jedi to do one job when they're probably gonna get captured? Like, I've never understood that. Even in the cartoon, they send one Jedi to do one job and they get captured. Rule of 2, or maybe use 3, and I understand there's less Jedi, you can't spread them out amongst the galaxy, but seriously, I thought that was just so stupid. All these Jedi show up, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, and Mace Windu's there. I'm like, finally you decided to do something. He's like, this ends now, Dooku. And the Jedi start fighting, and this battle really does nothing to, like, show the power of the Jedi, because I didn't realize it, but in the end scene, right when they're all, like, surrounded by the droids, and, like, you're like, this is the end, they're all going to die, there's, there are, like 20 Jedi standing there? 15 maybe? And before there were, like, at least, like, 30. Almost, like, it looked like 30 Jedi there, and it's like, really? The rest of them die? And also, the way how Jango Fett dies, it's such a waste. Like, why would you even bother saying, like, he's the best bounty hunter in the galaxy, and then have him barely in the movie, and all of a sudden he gets decapitated? Like, it wasn't even a fight. Mace Windu was kind of just like, beam, beam, and decapitates him. Like, I'm so angry over this film. And right when the Jedi are all surrounded, there's another Deus Ex Machina. Yoda comes in with the clone army, so thank goodness Chancellor Palpatine was granted those emergency powers, right? Otherwise, those Jedi would have been screwed. And Yoda comes in, and all these clones, and the Clone War has begun! Everyone escapes from the Jedi. Everyone escapes, literally. Like, they're so incompetent at capturing people. Like, ugh. They just always escape. It's just, I don't know, it's just one of my pet peeves. So Count Dooku escapes. Again. It's very interesting because when you're watching that huge the battle scene when they're fighting on Geonosis, you can tell that a bunch of the Jedis there, like, the actors didn't have time to train, because they're all kind of just, like, flinging their lightsabers like back and forth like this. And it's deflecting stuff, but it just looks really stupid. Like when you give a little kid like a sword and you're like, oh, let them fight. And they're all kind of just like, this? Yeah, that's what it's like. And all the clones, you can tell they're all CGI. Not one person was real in the clone suit. And you can tell they're all kind of like copy pasted because they're holding their guns like right at their hips. Like none of them are aiming down their sights. The fight between Yoda and Count Dooku, which is kind of like the huge climax of the film, this awesome fight. I don't know, when I watched it, I didn't really feel for it. It wasn't that awesome of a fight. Kind of like, okay, they fought. Dooku escapes. And that was it. It's not as cool as like Yoda versus Palpatine. That was pretty cool. I just thought this one was boring. But you know what? The costumes were cool in the movie. Woo! So, essentially the movie ends with Anakin and Padme. Oh, Anakin loses his arm in the fight against Dooku because right when he's like really cocky, this cocky student, he goes to fight Dooku, and of course Dooku just lops off his arm, like his hand, like it was, just like stick of butter. Chops it off. He's in pain. Obi-Wan's passed out, of course, and Yoda saves them, and the movie ends with Anakin and Padme on Naboo getting married. Yay! So my rating for this film, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack the Clones, gets a C-. Anyways, thanks for watching my film. I'm sorry, I think the review might have gone a little bit too quickly or anything. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section. And as always, live long and prosper.